Okay, we'll kick it off. Right. Hey, what's up, New Zealand and the world? Lucas Lawman's Kiwi Voice. We are sitting here with the leader, creator and founder of the Freedom and Rights Coalition, Mr. Brian Tamaki. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Pleasure, Lucas.
Awesome. Awesome. Alrighty, so we've got a few questions. We're just going to hear from Brian about the man himself. We're going to talk about the Freedom and Rights Coalition and protest activity and anything else that comes up in the next wee while. So let's get into it, Brian. So straight off, tell us a bit about yourself, as much as you're comfortable with. Yeah. Who is Brian Tamaki?
Well,
open for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm actually a husband, a father, and a grandfather. I put first my family, my wife. My marriage is very important. So basically in my life, I've always been very interested in how the next generation would live.
Yep.
Like I'm having children, 2 daughters and a son, which presently are all married now, and I have 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren.
Wow, yep.
So I'm a great-grandfather.
Yep.
So family, funny enough for me, the interest in, as a 21-year-old, growing up in the world back in the, late 70s, coming into the early 80s, more in the 70s, I was doing everything that everybody did at that time. That was the booze and parties. I was a musician as well. I worked in forestry from a farming family in Te Awamutu, raised, my dad's a Māori and my mum's European.
Right.
So the mixture of 2 cultures. And 2 sibling brothers who were known for the tourism, Tamaki Tours in Rotorua.
And
my 2 younger brothers. And 2 sisters. So for me, it's been interesting life. I've enjoyed my growing up. Dad was very much the stereotype Māori. He did drink heavily. He was semi-violent to the kids, but my mum was, funny enough, raised in a middle class, very wealthy white family. Up the hill at Pōkuru, we're just out of Te Awamutu. So they were both farming families, and they were down, my father was down where the gorse was growing and ragwort, but it was great riding horses between there, and then getting a serious looking at farming at my other, I suppose my uncles and aunties and my mother's home. So that was the environment I grew up in, and it was a happy environment.
Sure.
But I was converted as a 21-year-old. Not long after my 21st birthday, and ashamedly, shame of it actually, was very drunk and couldn't hardly blow the candles out.
And we all do that on our 21st, don't we? Well, a lot,
That's what happened, and life at that time, there wasn't any majors in my life that I should look for a crutch or some type of support for my life, because I was living good. I was playing rugby. I did very well, representative rugby. Played for the New Zealand Māori team for league. And I was in junior Waikato. So I was very sports-minded. And then music was a great love of my life too. So everything was, was well. I was probably a typical Kiwi kid in that decade, the late 70s, 80s. But it was 79 actually where I was invited to a meeting in Tūranga Waiwai, Marae, where my dad is part of the Tainui tribe. And they were having a meeting. There was a Christian one, and my dad and mum got converted. It was a big shock to our family. That dad would. And he converted to Christianity, growing up strong in tikanga Māori. But my mother was a Methodist, and the only believer out of her 7 siblings, brothers and sisters. She was the only one that believed God. And I used to question her later on, after what happened in my life, why did you believe God and the rest of your siblings didn't, and your mother and father? Which was typical for, middle European hard-working families at that time, who would have brought the gospel message out to New Zealand, and yet so many in that era were turned off religion. I can understand in some sense why they did that, but it was quite widespread. So my mum holding that faith was to have a huge influence on my life. And that influence wasn't the religion. It was her persistence that when Dad didn't come home from parties and drinking all night wherever with his brothers and sisters, he'd be away all weekend with the car. So my mother, though, would get us 3 boys, a year between us, the most misbehaved kids on the street. And so therefore she was taking us to a very stately Methodist church, stained glass windows, hats, farming community, all white.
Yeah, right.
He's these little half-breed Indians coming in, and we were in mischief. She would walk us all that way to this church in Te Aomori. Now, I think it was like a couple of miles, 3 miles. That's a long way for little kids. And we just gave her hell on the way. Fighting, arguing, pulling each other's, mucking our hair up. That's why she used to spit on her fingers, brush her hair. That's why I do like
keep the slick look.
Oh, just to try and keep it down because we're pulling each other's hair. So we're doing that. She'd give us a little pen, I don't know what it was, a pen or something in those days, to put in the plate. But we would take it out. We'd put our hands in and take it out. And so I saw this stuff, the Reverend with the white ring of confidence around the collar. And it was all very imposing, but we just played up and gave Mum hell. But, looking back, she did at time forget, what really got me was her persistence, her commitment. And she stuck to it. And even when it was showering and raining, she never missed taking us boys to church. Now, people say nothing obviously got into you because you rebelled as soon as you could at 9. And off we went. We did all our ways. But some things in childhood you just cannot shake off, hopefully the good things. And that was one thing for me. I never forgot that. So when I put my mind to something, I get committed to it and I follow it through. No matter what the circumstances are around you, I got that trait very strong, and so that's what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would that trait that you're talking about, persistence, that becomes such a strong influence in your life, that would lead over into, I would say, what you're doing with the Freedom and Rights Coalition. Would that be a fair statement?
Fast track,
So I mean, going on to that, how did that form? What was your driving force behind that? What made you want to start it?
Well, I didn't. I thought I was a late arrival in the whole freedom and movement, the freedom family. I didn't know much about that. They were existing before I was there, like Voices for Freedom and many others. So I was very committed to my work with people, particularly with ex-prisoners, people having trouble in their families. That's why I developed Man Up and Legacy. So I come to the point where I've done 43 years of church work, established, pioneered the whole destiny work. That's why forerunners are always more criticised than followers. And if you're going to start something, you're going to take a lot more than anybody else. That's become a part of my life. Pioneering. So I was with a denomination for 13 years, at the Apostolic Church Pentecostal. I served faithfully there to the point where I saw church with so many flaws. Not that I was looking for that, but we could do better. And I wanted to have something that was open, but it was purely good for men. And when I went, as a 21-year-old, I got converted. That church in those days were mostly the women representing the guys back home, watching rugby and all that, the kids. So I saw that a man's church, these churches weren't made for men at that time, especially in the 79, the early 80s. So that had an imprint on me. What I wanted to achieve was to do something different. So I started the Destiny Work movement. I was ordained by the denomination, so when people say I'm self-appointed, totally wrong.
Well, that's a good point, an awesome point to clear up.
Well, I came through the ranks of the Apostolic Church as a young guy, converted, and then went through, and I was basically set aside as a pastor, then a apostle. But I put that aside because I felt I wasn't ready to handle the expectation of that title. So that's only been recent times that I've allowed it to be used because my function equaled the call. Anyway, so how did it start? When I was looking at semi-retiring with my wife after all these years, and we had churches right through the country. So I had a network of Destiny churches in most cities and towns, and also through Australia in most of the big cities there. And
I didn't realise you're in Australia as well.
Sydney, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Perth.
Cool.
And it's going very well, very strong. And I really put a lot of work in fathering. I felt that was one of the big things because, as I said earlier to you, the generations, how my son and my daughters would grow up, I didn't want them. I saw some things that you wouldn't want any human to see. and particularly on the side of alcohol, there's drug abuse and the way that you treat relationships,
Yep.
and also the values that you would put into a person, into a child. Unfortunately, I had those values by my mother by default, because she had a faith that could hardly breathe in the house, because my father had a commitment to Lion Breweries.
Yeah, right.
And all the other mixture of different tikanga and beliefs. So it was quite a syncretistic kind of a situation. Many, I think in that I felt very strongly to raise a generation of people who would break generational, what I'd call influences, trauma, and curses on the bloodlines.
Yep.
And I felt that we could start better people, born into this world, not in deficit, but I would have my kids at least to start at
even keel.
zero.
Even keel, yeah. Gotcha.
And on a line. But even better if they could have some asset.
Yeah.
I grew up struggling. Hen and I, we grew up poor, poverty. It was a part of our homes, unfortunately. And I hated it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I hated us, not that we didn't have rich, but I hated us that we had to struggle to wear second-hand clothing from the Salvation Army op shop. That Dad would put dry, made of water and flour bread in my lunchbox and slapped Marmite on it.
Yeah.
And my best days I'd get sardine sandwiches.
Yeah.
But I'd open it up. And at the school, these little kids would gather around. They were mostly Pākehā kids, and it'd be the odd Māori, but he wouldn't open his lunchbox because our lunchboxes compared to theirs, lettuce, cheese, tomato, egg, beautifully cut.
Yeah, right.
Here's a slab of water and flour that's been, roasted in the oven.
Demper.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I'd open, they'd say, "Oh, what's that? You want to trade?" Obviously not. And the sardine sandwiches, I said to Dad, "Why?" Because they stink. You open it, and people go, "Pig."
Yeah.
The fish, but see, I got to eat it and I got to like it.
Yeah.
And those little childhood things I held on. So I like the old sardine sandwiches sometimes for lunch. But
nice.
And saying that, I saw that how much influence a father and a mother has on the development and the formation of their children's worldview, their values, their discipline, their life, how they treated people, and what they did in life, and that they're responsible for that. So I set about doing something totally, probably it would not be even thought of in the late 79, 80, through the early 80s. I decided to be a good father. Good
thing to aim for, yeah.
Well, all my mates weren't.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
There was no examples, and with kids, we won't talk about what they're doing now with the ram raiding of shops and little kids.
It's been bad news recently.
It comes right from the home. The home is the place of power.
Yep.
That's where it all starts. First place of education. It's the first place of instruction, and it's the place where you learn values, attitudes, and it is the home. It's not government, not police, it's not schools.
Certainly not government.
No. So if the formation period, that's why I'm sort of sharing a story, but I think it's so important because it shapes my whole worldview.
Yes.
And I saw the dynamic of saying, right, I want better for my children.
Yep.
And to do that, I had to better me. I had to learn along the way because I didn't know how to be a good father.
Yeah, right.
And Hannah, incredibly, was brought up by her dad, and my mother left when she was 6. I was really brought up by my mother.
Okay, yeah, right.
And my dad was boozing. So when you put the two together, there was interesting clashes. But the emotionally stronger and mentally stronger was the child that had, if there was to be a single parent, the dad.
Yeah, right.
The father was more important.
Interesting, yeah.
For the stability of the child, the son, and validating the daughter, than the mother was. And not putting down the mum's, the love and affection, but a missing dad. And the dad could be there. He's visible, but he's not home.
But not present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I met so many men that once you scratched right underneath and you talk to them about their relationship with their fathers, most of those guys in prison, 98% of them, would send a card to the mother but didn't want to send one to the father.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the real difficulty there. So I all the stuff I just absorbed and realised that if their world was going to change, then I had to be the change agent.
Yep.
I had to make changes.
Okay. Yep.
So that they could not only just hear words but see my life.
Yep.
And I think that's been the big thing with me, that if I commit to this, what is in it that's going to change people's lives? And really, getting our new mobile unit carrying wheels, holiday vehicle on 4 wheels. It's like a bus type thing.
Yep.
We got that just before the lockdown, and we decided we were just going to. Contrary to what we heard, we've worked hard all my life. I've never been unemployed.
Yep.
And the church said, you need to have a break, go away and have 6 months. We've never had a sabbatical, they call it, whatever. Where most pastors have every 7 years, 6 months or a year.
Okay.
I never took any.
Right.
But that came, and so we were all prepared and ready to go. And then all of this bubbled up about a government now that was taking away our freedoms. And I was a victim of that too.
Yeah.
In 2020 when it hit, we all thought it was kind of novel. We were all shut down and we're, okay.
Yeah, right.
There's a very deadly disease outside. We lead to believe if you breathe in, you're dead, sorry. You know, and that's how we thought. So we thought, well, we'll just listen to the government.
Well, that's what we were told, yeah.
Yeah. Telling us all that. We thought, well, they know better. Kind of, they've got scientists and modelers and all sorts of things.
Oh, they were modelers. We were talking, so the takeaway of our freedoms was starting to occur.
Yeah, well, that's when I became more aware of it. So I was, I don't know, I don't think I was in that area, although my first protest was in 2004.
Right.
So protesting wasn't new to me. I stood up for values.
Yep.
I stood up for families, good families, cornerstone of any society. So I've been involved in that, and the church grew rapidly. One of the fastest growing, particularly through the 80s, early 90s mainly. And then I shifted from Te Awamutu to Rotorua, my hometown. I went away to theological college for a whole year, full time. It's after my 23rd birthday. I was really serious now. So I've had all that sort of background, given me a solid substance in theology, because I knew I was going to do something for people.
Yeah, right.
So that's always been my heart, helping people, give them a better life. There's a better chance for you, no matter what you've done. We accept you, unashamedly, without any judgment. But I do have values. I do have principles. I think that's what's got me in trouble. Yeah. When they ask me, what do you think about
what you call trouble,
certain sexual orientations, for instance? And I'd say, look, this is my standard. I believe there's a father and a mother, and that's it. And there's nothing else. That's marriage. So I don't agree with a man and a man, woman and a woman. But I don't hate you. I don't dislike you, and neither am I actively going around. But if I'm asked about that, that is something that it's fair and square, put down the tube. And you disagree. If I disagree with you, it doesn't mean I hate you.
Well, that's the big thing for me. So, I was wondering whether that would crop up, because obviously there's been a lot. Because there's been a lot of media about
it. They have, and people, the perception.
Yeah.
So, when this came, I was invited on a Zoom. And this Zoom was interesting. I'd never been with different people other than outside my circle.
Yeah.
And just reaching everyday people mainly through the very narrow avenue of religion. But I'm not a religious person. I'm a believer. I've had a dynamic experience with God. It had to get me, a rugby playing, beer drinking, Mark II Zephyr driving, way back in there. And I was in a band. I was doing everything that you guys say would be normal for young guys, but that changed for me. So that I was never religious. And I've never led my church religious. I've been a very fluid, flexible, and always cared for people. So when I got invited on this, the whole thing that I saw on there, and there was people's names I can say now that you would know. Some of them you've interviewed, and they were all on there. So I was a quiet observer.
Yeah, right.
Being interested. But when it started to heat up is when I realised, and others were too, that our freedoms were being violated, and our rights. That got me. So what I think is an injustice or something that's beginning to hurt people, I'll jump in there. I'll probably jump first and then have a look around. Leap first.
Feet first. Yep.
So that was my whole thing. So I started talking to these guys, leaders. I got into my networks of pastors, and a lot of them you would have heard of and know too. So I got a hold of them, and I basically said, listen, we need to do something about this. This is not right. And my suggestion is that we need to take, because they got used to Zoom and keyboards and then we'd talk about it. I think I went on 3 or 4 Zooms, maybe more. And I started to talk about the practicality of getting people together. I've seen this before, been involved. We put our voices together, put aside our differences. Whatever you heard about me, whatever I heard about you, Lucas. doesn't matter. We agree right on this point that our freedoms and our rights need to be protected, preserved, and fought for, then I'm with you.
Yeah, 100%.
I got your back.
Yep.
Whatever you want or do, I'm with you. We'll go out there. So that was the common agreement. So when push came to shove, I said, well, I don't want this to be a destiny thing. I'm going to get accused of that.
Yep.
Just my face and my name.
Yes.
So it's broad reach. I don't want this to be a church thing.
Yep.
I'm leaving my religion to the side. Put it aside, I'm not going to preach. And most people will tell you I've never preached at the protest.
No, you haven't. No.
So here's what happened. I got an email together and put it to all these people, different ones, and said, look, I think it's a good time for us to start protesting.
Yep.
Positive, peaceful protest about the situation. So I said, look, we have a broad reach, so I came up with the name, the Freedom and Rights Coalition. At the time, it sounded a bit kind of, oh, what's this? There's no coalition yet. I know, but that's what I want.
Coalition of people.
Yeah, I don't want to, actually, I don't even want to lead this.
Yeah.
I'll be one of the people involved in it. I've got a network to go, so these people were put together, and we said, well, we'll get back in a week and we'll give me some indication, because I think we need to start soon. A week went by, and not one of those guys replied, except one after the date, the due date, which was about 7 days a week. And he said, we're all a bit sceptical, Brian, because you're a bit of a lightning rod for the media.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think that would be helpful if you
more attention.
We'll use it together. So if we stand together, you can talk too. So I'm left there talking as if it was about me and the church. I don't want that. So I made that clear. And I said, we need media attention, I think. If there's a way of using them that I've learned over the years. We have an abusive relationship, me and them. They use me and I use them.
Gotcha.
Well, you have to.
Understand.
They were never going to let me alone. So what we did is here that we put it out that didn't, and I was awake having a meditation time. That's quietly thinking about this. And there was just something deep in my gut that said that you need to start it no matter what people are saying around you. And they will come, well, hopefully. And
build it and they will come,
So that's what happened. And I tried, I talked. So I set a time away where I could talk to my wife. And I shared with her, and she said, what's happened to our holiday away? And I said, I need to do this. I need to, the people of New Zealand, there's a lot of pain out there. I got more into it, did some research. And found a lot of things that weren't lining up. And I
like a lot of people.
And I wasn't happy with how our government was treating its people. I didn't really take notice of this in the beginning, but began to see it more with the lockdown coming. That's what happened. So that's what happened. So I said to them, this is what we should do. We need to protest. We need to stand up. For me, I don't know if that's just bread and butter. I've done it before. I've done it in situations in my faith where I've had to stand, take stuff. I've been brutalised in the media because of that. It was difficult at first, but I've got through that and realised now that my haters are my elevators. And
I was going to ask you about that, how you manage that internally.
Well, not very good for the first year or two. That was way back in 2000. I mean, seeing your name on the front page of the Herald, and often for things that weren't correct, and actually outright lies at times, where I did not say that, and I did not come with that, and I do not hate these people. I hate nobody. I'm not on this call because I'm selective in my acceptance of different people and groups. I love everybody and still do. I don't have to know them either. So I got treated like this, and I think there was an agenda behind it, but we won't go into that. I dealt with that after a year, and they got into my family. They wanted to dug into our church business. A lot of stuff of that came up.
Just looking for an inflammatory story.
Oh, well, there was nothing they found. There was no fraud. There was no moral, instances of being in that situation. People have always complained, oh, you take money. Where? Somebody come up after all these years and put their fair and square, so the police have never got near that. Nobody's ever had proof, and I've never taken money. People give money. That's their choice.
Of course.
And their choice to give because they want to, I think, is their business. But saying we take money has been just a fallacy. But this has been trumped up. And once media get a narrative and they know what my ideology is and my belief, it's something that clashes with them, particularly the Labour government, they really disliked me way back in the Helen Clark days.
Right.
You know, look, I felt strongly about this. And when I started I gave the email out, no response to it. So I said to my wife, I'm going to start this. And so I set it out and I sat there and I looked at this this is before October last year, 2020, 21.
Yep.
Yeah, 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this government's evil. Because she said, that's a bit strong.
Mm-hmm.
No, I said, she is. And I said, what they're doing is not right and there's more coming. I just had a gut instinct.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, the protest is not just about protesting. It's about the removal of a political group of people who are not serving the people. They are taking away our freedom and our rights, and they're taking away my country of New Zealand that I grew up in. 64 years I've been in here, in this land, and I've grown up farming in different parts of it, to the city, and been a part of this, and this is not the country I want, that she's outlaid and she's put before us, the legislations that were railroaded through. So I became quite active in the first, after 2020, when I was interviewed way back then about the COVID-19 health response bill. And I said way back then that this bill's dangerous. This allows them to have the freedom to override a lot of our rights and the protection of what we are as a people. And I said then, Duncan Garner, that's how back he was interviewing me.
Yeah, right.
And they kind of I got a bit of mocking about it. It's not going to go that far. Oh, yes, they will. They will arrest us.
I think everyone did, though. That was the thing. Anyone that saw it early enough on, I was probably about 2 or 3 months in. I mean, I freaked out like everyone else, and then I sort of started to do my own research, talked to a few more people, got the feelings like you probably had as well. And and then I was like, well, this is going to get worse. And people were like, you're nuts. Now, the story that I always tell, Brian, is that I remember the documentary movie that was really big early on, Plandemic. And I remember watching it and then, and thought it was quite convincing. And then later on talking to people thinking, shit, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole there when they dropped, everything dropped and we're back to full stadiums and all that. And I was like, I think I lost my way a bit there. Now, I watched it again about 2 months ago and it was bang on. It's exactly correct. And I was like, oh, right. Actually, I wasn't nuts.
Well, there's a lot of things that then you couldn't quite put our finger on. But that I did. And I knew that there was something very off about this government. So right at that point, if I could say this, I got a very strong interest. And I know people, they think church and state should be separated and politics is not good and don't talk about it. Well, I think that's changed now because I put my sights on that political establishment down there. How did this get like this? How did so many people, 120 politicians, or they call them House of Representatives, supposedly, get in there, and how did we as a people allow them the freedom with a huge opposition, by the way? It's a fat parliament. It's big. But then with the size of it, not one person or a party could see that this was...
well, later on they tried to say they could see.
They are now.
Typical politician flipping,
That's right. We'll talk about them later on. But you know what? This here was a alarm bell to me, that I thought there were so many things wrong that I couldn't... I'm talking back in 2020. And then coming into 2021, leading up to this, I had a stronger view of this. So really, if people could remember, which they wouldn't, they don't have to, I thought one of the things that to design and to our messages and marketing, I had quite a knack for that. And during my church days, I've marketed our church pretty much. And I felt that we had to really get a message out that really this government must go. That was my first light. It wasn't actually protesting because of the freedoms or the mandates haven't come yet, and all the vaccine, what she was going to really physically do, but we knew something was coming. So one of my first lines is, this government must go. Got a bit of reaction to that. People were saying, you're too political, but I haven't been lately like that, that strong, but I've always influenced it because I felt so much stymied, stonewalled, limited by a government who couldn't give us the resources to help us, help people. So now in this situation here, so what I did then was with the Freedom Rights Coalition, I said to the guys, I came out of this quiet time believing that that's what it should be, and I wanted to own the space, the protest space.
Yeah, right.
For the one reason that I believed that because there was no protest going before that, which really surprised me. And I think Billy Takahika had started something, and it was pretty short-lived down Queen Street. So I don't know much about it, but was there. I saw it come and it went. But really there was nothing in New Zealand. Now it was happening all over Europe. Australia, right next door to us, they were
going nuts, yeah. Melbourne specifically.
And yet we still sat, Luke, I don't know, I may be wrong here, but I couldn't understand why, because I left this late. Usually I could be a quick starter, something I see, but I came late to this. Guys were all talking about it online, but couldn't quite make the step on how to do that. So I was surprised. So I did this. I thought, if we're going to protest, I don't want to end up doing protests that had no end goal.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I started with the end in mind, and I believe the removal of this government, and even further than that, and it's to hear today stronger now, that we have to bring some type of political change to this establishment.
Yeah, gotcha.
That Parliament needed reforming. There was a lot of stuff in there that's wrong. Anyway, getting back to this, I felt that was always a goal. So we needed numbers. I needed to own the space so we could get enough numbers for people to gather around this, and still hadn't started yet, so there's no guarantee. But I believe strongly that if I had a goal, that if I had something ahead that we could achieve to bring about change for us permanently, one, that this could never happen again.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people are saying. That's what they want to sort of enshrine, that this can never happen again.
It can never happen again. So doing that, I realised that our Bill of Rights had no power. That this government made Parliament sovereign and did not enshrine, as you said, the Bill of Rights into supreme law status. That's what it needed, but they didn't. So here's how we let the power-hungry politicians, and these career politicians, have the power without people, you and I just getting on with life. Meantime, they gave themselves sovereignty. Parliament was sovereign, not our Bill of Rights. So they were protecting political, political agenda instead of the life of the people and representing us. That wasn't happening. So there was a basic flaw right there. What I saw there was that we needed to target that at the end, and that's what did happen at the end. But just to tell you quickly, so what I did is that I thought, if I do this, I said to Hannah, I want to own the protest space. People hearing this will probably think, you clown. Who do you think you are doing that? Well, nobody else was.
No.
You clown. So I stepped up, and I was going on holiday to you clown, not you.
Yeah.
People say this.
Gotcha.
So I'm here because I wanted to help people in this country who are now in a position where they felt they had no voice. I don't know why. I didn't ask that question. Or that nobody was standing. And I'm not saying that nobody didn't want to do it. It just fell this way. So it started. So I said, right, we'll book the 2nd of October. That's a Saturday that last year. And then I'll follow through with the 16th and the 30th. The reason being that if we're going to get momentum and have strike at that time, where I believe it would be very difficult because it was level 4 in the levels. So a lot of people just didn't want to look at me. Starting the 2nd of October. And even the guys that on the Zoom who didn't answer my email now felt they could have a voice to tell me what to do now, So I said, well, it would be nice if you had been next to me, with me. But on the outside, they're saying, no, it's not the right time, don't do that, and how you're going about it's wrong. So I had to turn myself off on those opinions and set these 3 dates. The 3 dates would give people a comfort that if they couldn't get to the first one, they could get to the second one. And if the first one really worked, that meant I could get momentum with the second one, and the third one we had in our straps. That was my thinking.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And so I advertised it in a triple header. What I did, though, I said I quickly have to move. I said to my wife, I want to start a protest in a day across the country, in every town, every city. So how are you going to do that? How do you know this is going to work? I said the network of my pastors. They are good men, good people. We know each other. we're in unity, so we can be speaking the same message,
Yep.
and at the same time, simultaneously, starting the movement with a head start all at once. So she said, you better ring them and ask them. So I did. I got on the phone with a call, and I said to them, guys, I'm putting 40 years of my ministry on the line. Could shut our church down. I could lose everything. So could you. We may get arrested. I don't know what could happen. If you say no, it's all good.
Yep.
You're still a part of this, and you can watch and pray from the sidelines.
Yep.
But this is what I have to do.
Yep.
And they just came straight all over. Wirral, Canterson, you know, remember Canterson,
Yep.
Christchurch, Wellington, across the bay, all the north, Whangarei, Hamilton,
Yep.
New Plymouth, all of Wanganui, Nelson.
Yeah, I remember some of those days, and they were covered by the mainstream as well, even by that stage, where simultaneous, all in one day, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Tauranga, Nelson.
Probably I shouldn't use the term as a blitzkrieg.
Yeah, right.
The Germans used that as they hit everything at once.
Yep.
So I felt if I hit it big at once and catch the government off foot, and also the police, because I have a bit of experience with them. I know some of the cabinet ministers. They knew me well for the years. I've been around a while.
Yep.
So when I advertised it, I got all the marketing done before quietly and put it out there, communicate with the guys. We don't know what's going to turn up.
Yep.
Don't preach religion. Nothing of Destiny Church.
Yep.
We're here for the people. We're here for our freedoms and our rights, and we're fighting for the future of our country and our children. That's all it is. That's our messaging. Freedoms. Our freedoms, our freedoms, our freedoms.
Yep.
So I had to really get that, because sometimes you can just, you know.
Well, that was quite clear. I didn't get there to the first one till November. So start of November, I think it was, when I attended my first one, and I came across the marketing, the advertising through Voices for Freedom, one of the Telegram chat groups or something, and that was the thing that was made clear to me pretty early on. Was that this is the Freedom and Rights Coalition, and we're doing this because we believe our freedoms are at risk. And no mention of Destiny's Church whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, people knew, might have known some people, but whatever. And that was seen as just a good organisation, I think, specifically at that time. The first one I turned up to had like 7,500 people at it at Grosvenor Square. It was like, holy crap! I walked into that. I've been looking for somewhere to go.
Well, I was determined to make sure that this was all inclusive. It was broad reach. That's why I called it a coalition. I wasn't here as Brian Tamaki, as a bishop or the apostle. I was here as a father, a family man, and a Kiwi, hard-working Kiwi kid, growing up in this country. And now these despots were robbing my freedom and my rights and my children's future. So that's how it started. And it was strongly that. Now, when we did that and I advertised, had it all done, and I said, guys, when it comes, we have excellence. We're a well-organised organisation. Destiny is very well organised, and we communicate well, and we do things well, like sound, presentation, the way we speak. People, we had a goal. There was an end at the beginning, and that was to get to Parliament to change that establishment. So I don't think people knew that widely at all.
Not early on, I wouldn't think, from the communication that I understood.
I wasn't the sort of person to just go out and protest for the day and go, whoa, let's just throw everything at it and let everybody say everything, let's do any road will take us there. I'm a very focused person. I do something that has a plan, it's organised, and it has a goal, a target. So what are we doing this for? And if we're going to do this, what do we expect to achieve? And if we're going to do it again the following week or fortnight, then what's our, get into it together. So unity was always big on my mind. That that's the beautiful advantage we had, is to be able to bring them all together at the same time, under the same umbrella. And we had a purpose done with excellence. I was adamant they're going to be peaceful protest. So then we put the big advertisement out across. We got a very good advertisement thing. We've been doing it for years. So it went out across the nation, and I knew about mainstream media, and my goal was, because I didn't know if anybody going to turn it, could have flopped, and we would have been a media lunch.
For sure.
And also I wanted to reach mainstream New Zealand, because I knew if we were going to change our country and we're going to change this government, we needed to have a bit of mainstream media, their support to believe that our message would also be their message. This was also touching their lives and having an impact on them. Their freedoms and their rights are on the line as well.
Right. Yep.
I don't think a lot of them really realise that.
No.
So
A lot of people still don't.
No. And at that time, I, at the outset, wanted to present a professionalised protest, but not restrictive, not controlled, but well run, organised, and that we have a message that is common. Because I've been around long enough to build unity. You have to agree about some baseline, bottom line principles and conditions.
Yes.
So I was really a little bit naive. So I put out the advertising that came out, and straight away who got a hold of me was the police. And that was Commissioner Andy Costa.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Deputy Commissioner Wally Homaha.
Yep.
So I got a call from Wally, wanted to see me, and he said, "Are you having a protest?" Well, I said, "I'm going to be a part of one, the Freedom and Rights Coalition running it."
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
And they've asked me to be a guest speaker along with two others.
Yep.
One from the Groundswell, as they're known, and another person who is a teacher. People. So we talked about that.
And at that stage, did they say you shouldn't be because of restrictions or anything? Or
well, just I'm going a week up, so they Zoomed me because we couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was sat there, and they said to me, "What's happening?" And so I explained. And the first thing they said is, "Why are you having 3 protests already planned over the next, fortnight? Then the following fortnight, these dates."
Yeah.
The second they look at it, the 16th and the 30th.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, for momentum."
Yeah.
It was a bit naive,
Well, it's a protest. What are you doing it for?
We need it. So, they looked at each other, and I looked at them.
Yeah.
I was probably being a little bit cheeky. And they said, "Well, it's level 4. And I said, "Yes, I do. But I have a right to protest, don't I?" And they both said, "Yes, you do. But we want to make sure it's safe. There's safety." "Well, I do too." They said, because it's a very serious situation, so they talked about masking and distancing.
Yeah.
And I actually said, "Yes, I do," because I wouldn't have got out there if I didn't at least comply with some of the... I said, "We will." Okay, they said, "Well, how many are you expecting?" And I said, "Well, look, I don't know. It's level 3. A lot of people are very frightened. I'd say 300. And they said, "You got more of that in your church." I said, "No, my whole church's not coming out."
Yeah.
Some of my churches probably don't agree with this.
Yeah.
No, I'd say 300 could be turning up, if that. And so we'll be masked. We'll have all your wash stations, hand sanitizer. We'll do the distancing. I knew that if I was to get out there and to break through, I couldn't fight them on the Zoom and cause things to be collapsed. I knew I had to publicly appear.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to speak.
Yep.
So the other 2 guys, I told them about it, and the police said, "Well, look, we'll assist you and help you. Make sure it's safe. We don't want any incident." And I said, "Look, I can guarantee you that these protests will be meeting the response, COVID-19 response, health response requirements the best we can. And also, it's going to be safe," I said, "because I'll run peaceful protests. See Australia there," I said to them. "You don't want that in New Zealand, do you?" And they said, "No." And I said, "I can guarantee you the protests that I will lead will have no violence. We have people in my organisation that are security and some are police. And we've talked about this, not heavy-handed, but we will have no violence. I won't tolerate that." And Wally said, "I don't think you can guarantee that, Brian." I said, "I do." Well, just quickly saying here, I think we've finished with 116 protests that I was involved in leading over the country between October and March. 116. Not one single protest that was under my leadership directly had any incident of violence. So anyway, getting away from that, back to this. They said to me, "Okay, that's good." So they had no intention of arresting me at all. They believed the protest was right for me to do that. So that's
should the right to protest should override anything else, basically.
Yes, they agreed with that fully.
Yeah.
Like a protest. It was the health response bill was where they were going to get us.
Yeah, right.
That, you wouldn't wear the mask, or it was an illegal gathering.
It's a bit shifty, really, isn't it?
It is. But here's what happened. They found out that there were some problems. How could we get this guy to understand that we don't want to protest on level 4? Now, they got a hold of me the following day and said that there's a cabinet minister sent from Labour government who wants to come on a Zoom with us to talk to you.
Right.
Really?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you did. So this person appeared on there and said, "Hi, Brian, all right. Did you know it's level 4? And I said, I do. And so it's dangerous. And I said, possibly, but we're wearing masks, we're following along with the police, we're working together. They're putting plainclothes officers amongst us. We're going to try our best to keep the COVID rules as much as possible. So he said, but do you need to protest? Because look at Australia. What's happening?
Really?
Yeah.
The MP said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And look at what's happening there. And we prefer that didn't happen in New Zealand. And I said, exactly. It won't happen while I'm leading these. So he knew me. I know he knew me. He said, oh, that's not something that you could keep. Nobody can control protests like that. And I said, yeah, I can. I did say that. Might sound arrogant here, but that's what happened.
Yep.
Didn't have it.
Yep.
So he said, okay, well, look, are you going to go through with this? And I said, yes, I am. And he just hopped up off where he was and just walked away.
Really?
Yeah. So I knew.
In disgust, or he just...
No, I think they must have talked.
Yeah.
And they knew me from the past, and I found out that Jacinda was at my previous march in 2003 up in the window, working for Helen Clark.
Yeah, right.
And another person I know well was there when they were there. And this person today is a good friend, and he told me that when you did that 2003 or 4 protest, Brian, Helen Clark was down the window, I was there with 2 others, and Jacinda Ardern was there. She was working for them then. And at the window, they're looking down, and Helen Clark said, that man is going to be a dangerous man in our country.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. He said, I can remember her saying that, and I remember Jacinda being down there looking down to the left. She heard it loud and clear. I thought I'd just tell you that, he said. I said, that's interesting. So she knew of me from right back. So when this came here, he went back, and we know this for sure now with OIA, that's the Information Act.
Yep.
It was released. There was a conversation that happened between top cops and a Minister of Police and a sergeant that said he suddenly got some sort of writ or an edict it came down from this guy who went back to cabinet and basically said arrest him.
Right.
I hadn't even gone out.
Yeah, right.
So suddenly the commissioner and the deputy commissioner changed toward me. So this is the day before I got sent a email basically from the top cop who's now removing himself from any type of, we're helping you to do a safe thing now, to saying, if you go out there, you're most likely going to be arrested. You will be breaking some rules here. And I kind of look at this day before.
Yeah, right.
So I felt I had to let the other 2 speakers know because it looked like they were going to be aiming for some people to try and arrest.
Yep.
Well, how can I say this? They both said they're not coming. They ran away.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was left by myself, and I didn't want that.
Yeah, right.
Not from I was scared of the cops, or I wasn't scared of anybody, the government. I was more concerned from how you, the viewer and the listener, would view me. Because I knew what would happen. Look at him. He's out there doing all that.
It's all about him, whatever.
Which I didn't even want to be there.
Yeah.
And I had other people, so that there was a broad representation of speakers and people from different things. So what I'm not going to let this go now. I had to carry this through.
Oh, yeah.
So they sent me this email. I showed it to her, and I said, look, she said, we don't want you to be arrested. And I said, well, I don't want to get arrested either. But if we don't start now, I feel that I'm letting the universe down. It has to happen, and I may get arrested. So that's what happened. So that's communication came back. The OIA information that we have now in hindsight says that the conversation was arrest him. The sergeant that they were talking to said, this is the print. I can't arrest him because he hasn't done anything yet. We have no proof of him doing anything. They said, well, get some stuff on him at his home, in his electronics, and get get a warrant or something, go there. You hear this, I can't do that because there's no actual reason why we could do that. By this time, the Commissioner's office were getting very frustrated.
Right.
And so what came down was then get the police legal team to find a way that we can get this guy. Because the only thing they had on any protest was a $300 fine.
Yeah. Yep.
That's been there for years. In other words, they had nothing to... Yeah. No, they didn't bother. Protests were protests.
Yeah.
It was like a part of the New Zealand culture.
Yes. Yep.
And of course you wouldn't go and charge somebody unless they were violent or did something very bad.
That's just like the thing that's happening.
Springboks. And Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
So I'm going out of my way to try and keep their rules, to not break it, so I could fundamentally, participate in a democratic, you have the right to protest sort of a situation. So I did everything more than any protest has in the past where charges weren't laid.
Yep.
But somehow they wanted me
this is the thing. So I'm glad that you're sort of going down this path a little bit, because what's confounded me from a journalistic, I'm try-hard journalistic, but journalistic perspective is that with the treatment that you're just advising now or telling us about now and what's continued on from that point, why did it not happen to anyone else? That's my question. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say there, I guess, is, other protest leaders, whether it's Freedom and Rights Coalition or Voices of Freedom or anything, and none of them during restrictions were persecuted or pursued in the way that you were.
And that's why I said to your audience that Helen Clark had experience. So I've been in these sort of battles for a long time with the governments, not because of this, but because of other issues. So Helen Clark knew me. She was a protege, really. Jacinda Ardern is a protege of Helen Clark. Very much the same ideology. Yep. So I had a lot of run-ins with her because Helen Clark was changing our country. She was literally stealing our nation away already. She was already taking us down a path of socialism long before she arrived. Okay. So she knew I was dangerous. So that's why I brought that up to you. She knew that I probably had the ability to draw a crowd, had the ability to have the resources because I already had an organised operation. And my speaking, I just have to say it as it is, has the ability to bring certain stuff together and to highlight the things that they don't want highlighted. Now, if you go back to my first speech on that 2nd October when I got there, when I only listened to it about 2 weeks ago, and someone said, you should listen to this. And I had a listen, and I only got about 6 minutes in, and I said, flip, I would have arrested me too if I was the Prime Minister. Crap. And I'm looking, I'm saying that? I'm saying
emotion took over a bit?
No, accuracy. Sorry to say that. Well, I'm a passionate speaker.
Yeah.
I touched on all these things that were to come. I really hit their whole plan of control, the intrusion in our lives.
Centralisation.
Totally went to the political power they're abusing. And I hit the media because they just brought in the act under the cover of COVID as well while we were all sleeping, pushed it through, railroaded the Terrorist Act. And I said, that's because of people like me. So I hopped up there that day, and when I was there, I said, there is a terrorist cell I know that's working and operating in this country right now that should be taken down, and they're harming our country. So down in the pit there in front of me was every news outlet that you could get, all the TV stations and the media. And I said, here they are right in front of you, everybody. It's the media of New Zealand.
Wow.
And they was like, and the crowd just erupted. And some of them ran over there, and the poor media. One of them said, fuck you, Brian, under his breath. And I watched them with a smile of satisfaction because years I've been a kind of a lone voice saying this media lie, and people mock me and that. And I said, well, these guys have finally got it. I think the freedom movement was seeing how these guys lied. This is before a protest that I said that. Well, just the first one that started. And I called them out right there and called them the real terrorists of New Zealand. Right. What they were doing. So from there they knew, that the media knew that I was going to be a real nuisance to them. But I pulled up government policies that they were laying out now that were dangerous and that they would be harmful to our people. So I was calling them. I used their names. I named Ashley what he was doing. Tying us down in lockdowns was illegal. And I said that then. Now it's been proven in court they were illegal. And I also got taken to task about a whole lot of stuff. So that's by now I'd got up there. These other two went, and I spoke. I was surprised when I hopped up there, Lucas, and I'll say this, that there was our group all masked up. It was a very small group, it was only about 300, but there would have been about 3,000, half plus, out there that day. I was shocked at the amount of people turning out. And the motorcyclists, there was about 200 motorcyclists from all sorts of, backgrounds, not just gangs. They were from riders, Ulysses Club.
Oh, we see that on the ones here.
Over 60s.
The big mix. Yep.
But this is the thing, they were all European. They were white. I mean, when I say that, because I didn't think they'd be interested in me, coming to hear me. They probably weren't coming to hear me. They were coming to a protest. Yeah. Okay, that's well and good. But it did show me something. I hopped up there and looked out. They were there on their chairs and stuff. No mask, no distancing, hugging and yelling out and giving the fingers to the government, like this, and to the media. And I was thinking, whoa, here's this half-caste Māori with this little group with masks on, trying to distance. Yeah. And I was looking at this and inside I was saying, oh, you guys are cool. And then when the media tried to come up and take photos, some of them jumped out and started going in front of them like this. Yeah, right. This is the 2nd of October, the first protest. Yeah, yeah. It was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Because they put umbrella at one head and they started to protect me. They had big long zoom cameras. Yeah, right. That was touching for me. Yeah, yeah. I said, I don't know you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're different kind of cultures, we're different backgrounds. You probably don't like anything about my Destiny Church. No, you don't like anything about it. Probably you don't. But when I was halfway through speaking, I spoke all the right things and rung all the bells. And I think they thought, here's somebody that's brave enough to say all the stuff that we are saying in our houses. Yep. And he's saying it publicly in front of the whole country. These people here were just absolutely incredible. And I kind of fell in love with them because they were protecting me. Not that they thought they were protecting me. I think they hated the media more than they liked Brian Tamaki.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
But I think they did, because after they finished that, they pushed these guys around. They even pushed the police camera around. Yeah, right. I said, boy, if I even went near toward them, I'd be, charged. So I like these people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the feeling that I get, and I've seen this in many interviews actually, Brian. And that's when I first went to that very first Freedom and Rights Coalition protest at Cramno, like I said, there was about 7,500 people there, and I'd been looking for this place. I didn't know that I was really looking for it, but once I got there, I was like, oh, my people, these are wonderful people. Yeah. And you could just feel the energy. I know. And from that point onwards, I've made some amazing friends. Yeah. Through Kiwi Voice as well. I've had people offer to help with donations, as well as helping with tech support and microphones, and people that got those skills. And everyone's just so open and accepting. And it's just a really nice place to be. And you try and explain that to people, and they're like, dirty anti-vaxxer, bloody protesters. But it's like, well, have you come to one? Come and feel it.
Well, I come to that day. Dare I say this? I fell in love with the protest people. Yeah. I fell in love with these cultures and beliefs and idiosyncrasies. I had people that were tree huggers, who were into cannabis, who were into crystals and the universe lovers, to middle white business people. Māori, and to people right at the other end who were just weren't interested in ever having a relationship with myself or others there. So there's the creation of this new family. It's the freedom family, I call it. And I think now that we're probably family for life. We're joined by a common purpose and cause. But I think that's gone deeper now, because we have Freedom Connect groups that the Freedom Rights Coalition right across the country. So that day, I think it was historic in a lot of ways. It was the beginning. It was the genesis of the whole protest movement. That was to carry on right through to the big infamous one at Parliament on that day in Wellington.
Yes. Yeah.
So we now began something that I think in the history of this country will always be remembered, when the people of New Zealand decided for once in their history of having bad politics. It wasn't just happened now. It's been decades in the building. That they withstood the bully. We stood up together. We locked arms. We overlooked our differences and our beliefs and our backgrounds and our colour and our religion to join together to fight a common enemy that was trying to steal our rights, our freedoms, and our country away.
And that's what we've desperately cried out for in the last couple of years specifically. And that is the division is used. You probably feel that way. I'm assuming you would feel that way by the media and the government to continue to keep us in our pockets, easier to manage. Right. It's happening all over the world. And so when you got to something like the Freedom and Rights Coalition protest, and people were overlooking that crap, like you said, and just like uniting. You can look past differences, and I think that's also part of what made me reach out to get in touch with you, Brian. Is that I think this is something that we need to continue to do. Have conversations with people you might think you've got differences with, but you've got more common ground than you think.
That's right.
100%. So I totally appreciate that thought. What's your vision for Freedom and Rights Coalition going forward?
Well, at the moment, I'm going to say it's formed another family, and it's a place where they are now doing what we call Freedom Connect groups. They've been involved in getting together. This is post, protest. Can't protest forever, but there will be times when we may have to do it again. I don't trust her at this stage still, and I know a lot of them feel the same. There's a winter coming, and there's a lot of stuff that's still there in the 18 months to the election, or a little bit less now. So we have a lot to think about. We need to keep talking. I think we need to take notice of the political opportunities we have. We'll never face this probably again, hopefully, but to protect that or preserve that not happening again, we need to be involved in this political process or the next elections, 2023, like we never have been before, to participate, to step back maybe a little bit and to say, well, how can we achieve that, stopping it so it wouldn't happen again, but more positively, getting rid of politicians that are not helpful, they don't serve us, they're self-serving, and how can we shape new politics, a new future, a way of creating a New Zealand that's going to work for us all. And I think we've got some pretty savvy people amongst the protest freedom family. I've come across some pretty smart people, in their particular, niche of expertise, their skills. And if we can synergize that together on the one purpose that we want the right people in there, I'm tired of career politicians. I don't think we should be voting for blue or red. The same
I agree with you.
The abusive husband we go to, and we're the kind of like the battered voter, the wife that goes back to red because blue beat me up. And we go for 3 years and we see, we've done it again. We go back to the blue vote. So that's what we do. But we've seen that these two parties have got bad politics. It's in the root. So to play with the symptoms and say, well, let's find the right person. There's no Superman politician or poly girl that's going to come through and actually do that. We've got to get away from party politics.
I think the thing is, once you get in there, even if you were had the right values and morals, and you got in there, you get corrupted.
You're going to get corrupted. Exactly. Well, you're going to toe the party line. And they party gagged. That's what happened with 120 representatives. That protest down there, went for how many days?
23 days.
23 days. 1 in 3 Kiwis got to a point of agreeing with Ed Magnets. That's a big portion of this population.
It is,
So you could tell me that one of those 1 in 120 couldn't come out on the pavement to even just to make an appearance, to listen or to talk to us.
So bad.
What happened was some of them wanted to, but the top 3 executive would put out what they called gag orders. How do you like that? We don't vote you in there to go and control the rest of it. We voted to represent us. So they gagged right down. You cannot. Nobody's going out there. And our mate Mallard, Duck,
oh shocker,
put a cross-party edict across there that no party, and dumb national. This is what I mean. National, the ACT Party, the Māori Party, the Greens. None of the opposition party who we pay a good salary. By the way, they're the biggest beneficiaries because they're not in government. But they sat there in the time that we needed them most, Lucas. They never ever protected, at any time, protected the rights of New Zealanders, the freedoms of New Zealanders.
Yep.
They never said a word. In fact, they were agreeing with some of the process at that time Labour was purporting to do, like the mandates. National agreed.
Yep.
Seymour, he said he would force mandates on New Zealand. The Māori Party were the same. They went on it too and agreed. So they were all complicit. So really every, Kiwi with common sense, you cannot put your vote, which is the power that gives them power, to actually get back in there. The whole thing should be shut down. It should be suspended for a season, like a spoilt child sent to their room and go down. We can't let that happen.
I think the thing is, in New Zealand, it's almost unique in so much as that other countries have at least got some kind of representative that is full on pro freedom.
Exactly.
Right? We don't have that.
We don't
at all.
Well, it's proven.
Yeah.
But now they're running out there. God bless Matt King and Winston Peters and everybody else who suddenly popped in for half a day on the back of me and you starting this. 116 protests later, I get charged. I've been in court. I've been curfewed for 24 hours, 78 days. I was locked down in my house, and 10 of those days I was in Mount Eden prison.
And this is for breaking COVID restrictions.
This was for holding a mic in my hand.
Yeah.
Meantime, they're not charging gang members shooting each other down Main Street.
No.
They're not charging All Black who defrauded many people. He just got home detention.
Yeah.
They're not charging people who drive around the wrong side of the road, beat up some guy next to death. But Brian Tamaki, you touch that microphone, you're in prison, buddy. I wasn't allowed to go near Wellington. They made sure that they visited me every day when the Wellington one started.
Goodness gracious.
The police were paranoid that I'd physically try and sneak down to Wellington. So they obviously gave me a lot of credit.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look at one way to look at it.
That I was very important. So, well, you know what? The message, they didn't want me there, I tell you, Luke. They were absolutely paranoid. I was on my way down on one part of it to come to it, and I got as far as Levin, and it got to the police in Wellington. They directly got a hold of my lawyer, and my lawyer phoned me and says, "Where are you?" And I thought, how the heck did he know? I'm in Levin. He said, "Are you going to the protest?" And I said, "Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn up tomorrow. I need to be there." Brian, the superintendent in Wellington, told me, "You turn up, he's going to slap the cuffs on you.
Goodness.
They're going to put you in jail straight away. Do you want that?" And I was sitting there, and the other boys in the car, "Oh, please, Brian, don't go."
Yeah, right.
They knew I was thinking seriously of doing it. I'd have gone to jail.
I would have felt that way in your position. I would have been like, I'm going to go.
Well, I just really felt I needed to be there.
Yeah.
But my wife got me and she said, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's no point in you being in the prison in Wellington, that's all going on. And so, so I turned around and went back.
Yeah. And let's see.
So, yeah.
Between now and the next election with the Freedom and Rights Coalition and the political advocacy or whatever you want to call it that we're getting involved in there, what's your vision for that? How do you see that playing out between now and the next election?
Well, one of the things I said when I was asked by the Freedom and Rights Coalition team about the future of the election, what could we do to help actually make that? Everybody knows that this government should be removed, but what do we replace it with? Who? How can we have the influence that's not going to let this happen again? Yep. Well, just quickly, I thought that probably the smaller minor parties should unite. There's no way that we could do this.
Everyone's saying that. Everyone on Kiwi Voice is saying that. Yeah. All the viewers. Yeah.
And that's right. So we've sort of put, what I thought would be good is if the Freedom Rights Coalition, which is politically agnostic, it's neutral, sort of using that word.
Yeah.
So it would be a good, I guess, an entity to be able to initiate that, talking across board to bring some of these together. Like at the moment, I think we'd like to talk to the bigger organisations of the protest family, like Voices for Freedom, the Freedom Rights Coalition, and so those are the two bigger ones that were having the most influence. I think. I agree. And from where I sit, if we join together, and I'm in talks with them next week. Awesome. So that if we come together nicely and say, look, we want you to participate with us, be a part of us, a partner. Yep. That's my view of it. That we work together. Because we have a common goal and we've got to put aside There's little differences and the little things I've heard about you, and you do this or you do that. Put all that aside, and again, what we believe, but there's a common cause that we could agree on, that we could make a difference. And I think all the small parties together, if they came together and we agree in principle on one or two bottom lines, we're looking at something like 7.5 to 8%.
Yep.
And I've been talking a little bit too with the president of New Zealand First, and the Conservatives will be hearing from us. So these those bigger parties.
Yep. Tell them to come back to me on about my interviews. I've been hassling them.
Yeah, well, it's sort of just very quite low key though.
Yep.
So there is possibilities, but if we can get the viewer, the people and those that are out there that want something different, but something they can trust, it's not a waste of vote either. The waste of vote is if you voted for National Labour in the last 10 to 15 years, because look at the rubbish we got is from them.
Yeah.
So I think this could work. Luke, and I also see that there's a possibility, like one of the things you threw out there, I had an idea about lease your vote. And the lease your vote is, most of us only use our vote when we get to the polling booth on the election day, and we think about that, and we individually go in there, even change our mind in the last minute, and a lot of people.
Yep.
But if we got our votes, put it to work, instead of leaving it dormant, and joined it together with tens and hundreds of thousands of other votes, then that advocacy you talked about, you've got a very strong entity that can start to say, you guys, you are never held to account. You don't let us say, well, what do you say about education? What do you say about social service, unemployment? And what about GST? And what about our tax rates? And so we can take you to task before you get there and get you recorded online like this, then put it up, the conversation that you had with the People's Political Movement, where all our votes, so here's how many thousands are behind this, so we're all waiting for your answer.
Yeah, right.
And you remember, like I said to you, like the 3 strikes and you're out? Well, I thought about 3 lies and you're out.
Yeah.
A politician, you lie 3 times and you're out.
That would last like a week.
We'd clean
or less.
Well, that's the way we can clean their parliament out.
Yeah.
If the people agree to 3 lies and you're out.
Yeah. How would you prove it? But yes.
But when are we going to get a politician that is truly not going to lie to us?
Oh, goodness.
Have you ever tried lying to your wife?
It just doesn't work.
You can't lie to the police or the law.
No.
I wouldn't lie to my wife. But these guys get up there, and it's supposed to be the place where all the principles and the rules and the laws are made for good life and living.
Yep.
You know, and they lie through their teeth.
Yep. And some really, not just lies, but lies that have significant effect
I know.
on the country.
And people around me are saying, oh, Brian, they're laughing away because they think, no, you can't have that. You can't get a place that won't lie. So it's normalised.
Yeah.
Parliament, politicians get in there. I think every person has the grandiose idea, I want to go to Parliament because I want to help people.
Yep.
And I believe they do have good intentions. But as soon as they get into party politics, bang, they're gagged by the top 3.
Yep.
You sit on the back bench, and here's how it all happens.
Yes.
And next thing, they polluted.
Yeah, and you've seen more recently as well, we'll close it off shortly, but you've seen more recently as well, Labour and possibly even, National and possibly a Labour MP, fairly significant, they're MPs and members of Parliament that have been attended a protest of either a Voices for Freedom one or a Freedom and Rights Coalition one. They've turned up as a civilian and they've been pulled into line. They've been like, Hank, nah, you're not an MP anymore.
That is wrong.
Yeah, that's completely wrong.
This is our representatives coming out to where? To the people that they're representing.
Yeah.
You're coming to the people and you're getting in touch with what really is reality with us, what's happening in our business, what's happening in our family, what's out there, because they're so out of touch, because these people are out of touch and they're in that little wee place of confusion and then they start doing the ideology and putting out all these legislations. No, I believe we're going to have our best days yet.
Yes, right.
The future
that's
is
good.
better.
That's positive.
Yeah. And I think we could do something very significant. So I'm going to be working with others and yourself and people who want to make a difference and a change. And I believe we can if we can just all come together and convince the voter this is worthwhile voting here. You couldn't do any worse than what we've had. Flipping heck, Gosh.
Yeah, and I mean it's been happening for, like you said, for decades.
Yeah.
However, it's almost like it's just been given a turbo boost the last couple of years with COVID. That's how I see it.
Me and you and Derek over there now and here, we could have done far better than 3/4 of those people in there. Much as you might not like us, or think we're not up to it. Look at the chunk they've pulled on us.
Well, like you said, it's become a corporate job as opposed to serving the people, which is what it's supposed to be.
Well, you get a kindy teacher. Which is Potter Williams, and is given the portfolio to run the police.
Yeah.
I mean, oh gee.
Yes.
Something's wrong with that.
Correct.
You want an experienced cop who's been good to take that portfolio.
Yep.
I think the Minister of Forestry was somebody who was involved in looking after the animals and SPCA and all that sort of stuff in forestry. He's got no idea of it. He gets the portfolio. Yeah. So the whole representation and local government, all that sort of stuff, and how we run part, it's all just backward.
Yeah, indeed. Hey, look, I think that's a good note to end on. We're looking for positive change. Yeah. Appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. I know you got a lot going on while you're down here in Christchurch, Brian. Thanks to everyone.
Saturday's a big march, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Apologies, absolutely.
I'm here to help you.
Yes, excellent, good quote. So, the Freedom and Rights Coalition have got their first march, and I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. Big one tomorrow at Latimer Square at 11. Is that correct? 11 a.m.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be there. So I'm looking forward to going. Last time I came, they put me in jail.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You're free to, as you've always been free to protest, but really free at this time. So go get down and support that if that. You guys, as you know, that's I'll be there as well, covering off or doing the documentary style vid. I might even say hi to Brian if we spot him down there and get him on camera again. So thanks everyone. Remember to share this around. Chuck any comments in below. You got active Facebook at the moment?
Yes. Yeah.
So I encourage you to get on and answer any questions that anyone chucks up there if you get the chance to do so. So look out for some comments there, people. And that'll be about us. Awesome, Brian.
Thank you, Lucas.
Yep, and
pleasure.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you again real soon. Awesome. That was cool. That was good yarn. Good yarn.
Yeah. You got inside the world.
Yeah, I think.